Jazz Ranch. I told the ultra-dominant ego man to split and go feed the horses, otherwise he was going to do an introduction. I told him he was complaining to me that I reprimanded him for being so good at teaching the lady cowhands bebop tunes around the campfire. And I told him, well, you should be a little more modest. And he said to me, modesty is for those who have no talent. Whatever. What are you going to do with the guy? Anyway, I have a special lesson for you today, and it's about the harmonic minor scale. So here we go now with some exercises and some applications of the harmonic minor scale. I want to hip you to this fascinating scale, which is called the harmonic minor scale, and how to use it, how to apply it to a tune, and particularly the fifth mode, which relates to a dominant seventh, and it alters it in a fascinating way. But anyway, this is unscripted, so just go with me here. And the harmonic minor, in order to understand what it is, you have to understand what it is not. So we have a grouping of minor scales, and we have the harmonic minor, we have a melodic minor, we have a natural minor, and we have a Dorian, we have an Aeolian, we have a Phrygian. They're all minor scales. So now, and there's other minor scales as well, but let's look at this particular scale and figure it out. Now, I'm going to be playing it in the key of E flat major, or C, relative to C minor. And the reason for that is because I have a couple of tunes I want to use this scale with later on, and they are My Funny Valentine and Softly as in a Morning Sunrise, and they're both in the key of C minor, or relative to E flat major. And so I want to make this practical. So I'm going to use, sorry I have to use the three flats, but the three flats are going to be here's the E flat major scale, right? So now we go to the sixth degree or sixth step of it, and we have this scale. That's our C minor natural minor scale. It's also Aeolian, but so there it is. Now it has three flats: E flat, A flat, B flat. Now the harmonic minor, when we get to there, now instead of going to the B flat, we go to B natural. So we have a leading tone now, what's called a leading tone, which allows us to have a G7 to take us back to C minor. We want that to happen, so we need that. And you will also get it with the melodic minor, but the melodic minor with that natural 6 is more intended for melodic ideas that are approaching in an ascending motion. That's why we always look at the melodic minor ascending and the natural minor descending, because, you know, I never knew this before, but this creates better melodies. And then this creates better harmony on the descending. This is descending in the natural minor. So those flatted notes work really well, you know. So there you get it. Now, let's continue and explore this scale a little bit further. Okay, now, what I tried to do is I tried to figure out what is the most practical application of this scale. And I figured out it was to use it on the 5 chord. In other words, the dominant seventh of the key you're in. So if you're in a minor key, you know, it'd be the 5 of it. So like we're in the case, in this specific case, we're in C minor, so the 5 chord is going to be G7. So a way to get back to 1, right? We can use this scale to get back to 1. Now, that means we're using the 5th mode of the scale, because the 5 is always the 5th step of the scale. So now we're going to play the scale starting on the 5th step. Now that's a mode of it. So like, you know, it's going to be a G7, but it's going to sound like this. Remember, the scale was this, so it was that. So now it's going to sound like this. That's pretty cool sounding, right? I'm going to show you some really cool licks on this later on. But what's going on with that scale on the G7? Well, it has a flat 9, not a sharp 9, but has the major third, which we need here, the leading tone, the 4, the 5. Then it has this augmented, we can say flat 6, but I call it augmented 5th now, and the flat 7. So it really fits the G7 augmented chord really nicely, and that is a superior chord that wants to resolve to its 1. Like that, you see? You know? So that's a great scale for improvisation. And I'm going to break it down now into the various modes. And just stay with me on this, and I'll get to the part that is going to be more fun. Okay, so now how are we going to use this scale and make it practical and getting down to the nitty-gritty? Well, we want to use the fifth mode. I'm going to use the fifth mode on the 5 chord of any tune that's in C minor. So I'm going to use 2 tunes, Softly as a Morning Sunrise and My Funny Valentine. But when we look at the 5 chord, now it's going to be augmented. Why? It's going to have a flat 9 in it. Why? Because that's what the scale does. Right? The harmonic minor has that flat 9 in it there, and that, and it has the augmented fifth up there. So it's a perfect scale to fit that chord that really wants to move to C minor. Why is that? It just has the pull. That flat 9 wants to go down there. And that can actually stay there, but it also can move to a ninth, like that. So there's more tension in it because it has the flat 9 and the sharp 5 than it would if it didn't have those, if it was like this. And that would probably want to move to C major, but now we want to do C minor. So that's the scale. I used the B flat in there. So now I'm going to show you some licks based on the harmonic minor, going from the 5th mode and resolving from G7 altered to C minor. Okay, now if you read music, you can just download the sheet that I have for this. There's no charge for that, and you can see what I'm doing and analyze it. If you don't read music, then you can just look at what I'm doing. And let's take the first lick. Now that's the G7 chord, so this is the lick I wrote out. See, so it's just a 2-measure lick. In other words, G7 altered to C minor. And the C minor now I'm voicing it as a 9/13 chord, but like a, see, so you can play it different ways, but that's the first lick. Now here's the second lick. So it's just 5-1, right? Try to swing it. However you want to do it. It can be 2 measures, 1 measure, whatever. Okay, so the next step would be now, instead of 5-1, I would do a 2-5-1. So I'd have the 2 would be D minor 7 flat 5. Remember we talked about that. It has to fit the E flat scale. And that's the 7th step of an E flat scale in the modes. And it's the 2nd step of the relative minor, so now we have this to the 5. Pretty easy and straightforward, right? But we have up the arpeggio then, and we have this to the 3. It really works well whenever you make the target tone a 3. This is target tone of the 3rd. Let's look at another one. Let's look at that. Let's make it kind of work it in. See, so you want to really practice that scale and then try to apply it to a variety of licks that you make up. I'm varying it now, of course. Okay, there's a couple of variations. Let's apply it to the song Softly as in the Morning Sunrise. Now in this particular tune, the 2 chord and the 5 chord fall in 1 measure. So like we can use any of the licks that are based on 1 measure. Like a, so like we have this. here's our 2-5 there. Right? So like or like or like or like you know, here we see that? So that's working. So let's look now at a song that is going to apply the chord progression to, rather than 2 measures, to a 4-measure pattern. On a 4-measure pattern, we're going to have the D minor 7 flat 5 for 4 beats, 1 measure, and then the G7 augmented, or the flat 9 for 1 measure, and then resolving the C minor. So like here's a lick. Let's get that. Here's another one. Let's see. Vary the rhythm like it. It's a really great scale for improvising. So there's some ideas. Let's look at one more example and then we'll wrap up. To show you how great this scale works on a song in a minor key, I'm going to use My Funny Valentine, which is in C minor relative to E flat major. The bridge goes to E flat. Now right here's our 2-5-1. I can put that lick right in there, like right? Or I could put it like this, like that, or I could. You see some. So if you have that scale in your hands, what happens is when you learn a scale, eventually it gets into your ear. And you're not just playing, you know, 1, 3, 5, 6. You know, you're not playing the intervals, you're playing the sound of the scale. Right? That's all I can say. That's what I do. I hear the sound of the scale because I've learned it, I've practiced it. It takes work, but the work is rewarding. It's rewarding. I'm going to sign off now, and thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you'll write to me. You can see the Herbster enjoyed it. He's been hanging out here all evening. And now he's watching the horses out in the backyard. So anyway, till next time, I want to say be cool and swing loose. Bye-bye.